Yo, 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 it's your boy Devin, and welcome to another episode of Surfing the Void. This will actually be our very first episode, as we kind of take a step into the void itself. We'll be touching on to different key issues that we experience in real life activity. The very first thing that we'll be touching into today is actually going to be emotional permanence, but that's not going to set the wave for the entire podcast. See, our podcast is going to not only be dealing with mental issues, spiritual issues, but also some of the key economic issues that we may have. This very first episode, I'd like to thank a lot of different people for supporting me. I have people from social media that I've never met in my life supporting me on this. I have people that have been long-term friends and family that have been supporting me. And to everybody that's out there listening right now, I appreciate you. This has been a long time coming. It's been 3 months of hard work, thoughts, effort, and research, and I'm glad to be able to. And when we decide to actually sit down and we take a look at these things, we should take a look into ourselves, right? Maybe the things that really caused these issues to take place, whether it was family, whether it was previous friendships, whether it was those relationships. These things affect us almost every single day. More often than not, these issues are caused by loving somebody so intensely or having a connection with somebody so intensely, whether it's friendship, platonic, whether it's a family relation, a domestic situation, it doesn't matter. We end up getting hurt by those people. We end up getting disconnected, or we feel as if we don't have that same draw to that person anymore. And it leaves us looking in the future and in the present for something that's very similar. We love the way that we felt when everything felt good, and the validation and the admiration that we actually received from these people. We loved those feelings. They were great. But at the same time, that pain was so intense that it leaves you wanting to feel that joy and that love again, but never ever wanting to feel that pain again. And that seems to be a consistent issue when we're just looking about face to pretty much everything that we experience in our relationships today. As a man, I can tell you right now that I had disconnect from the family. I had disconnect from my friends, my peers, from my teachers, from everybody that I held at a higher standpoint, at a higher significance, at least once in my life from these people. And it's caused me to have different feels, emotions, thoughts based upon that, and made me think that maybe I have an attachment like love style, I have an attachment issue or maybe a disorder, and that's not the truth. That just happens to not be the truth. More often than not, we just struggle with emotional permanence. Just the idea of remembering that these people still care because of the people that didn't care when we weren't beneficial, that didn't care when we had nothing else to offer or any use to offer. And that stuff takes a toll on us every single day. A few things that we can kind of do to, help those situations and to help resolve those feelings of angst or anxiety just happen to be, self-analytics. Sometimes just taking a step back out of this vessel of a human body that we have, and maybe just analyzing ourselves and our past. And we do this. A lot of us do this a lot, A lot of us are over-analytic. Sometimes we think about ourselves too much. Sometimes we think that we're a burden. Sometimes we think that we don't help the people around us, or we have nothing left to offer. So what could they possibly want with us? But that's not the type of analytics that we need. That's not the type of way that we need to analyze our life. We need to take a step back and say, hey, when were some of the times that I was overreacting on myself? Take a step back as a third person. Put yourself in the perspective of looking at yourself from somebody else's view. Or maybe, no, scratch that. Take yourself away from this situation. Imagine that somebody you care about, someone that you love, someone that you admire, is sitting right there in front of you, and they're breaking down their life. They're breaking down their relationships. They're thinking about their family. They're breaking down everything. How would you react if they told you some of the same things that has happened to you and that your life? How would you react to them? Wouldn't you feel kind of sad? Wouldn't you feel maybe just a little bit worried? Or maybe you would want to give them that validation or that justification, that gratification that, you tried your best. You offer more than a lot of people do, and you know what? You offer enough. If we could take a step back and we could offer that same type of support to ourselves, we would no longer need the support from others. And we would no longer look for that validation or that gratification from other people. I mean, every single day that we kind of grow, we try to solve these same issues that we have. We kind of end up thinking ourselves into a hole. We go into the void, and we don't ever just surf the void, for lack of better words. We don't surf the void. Instead, we see this giant wave of impulsive attacking that for some reason consumes us. We just see a giant wave of destruction from our past fears, ambitions, our past feelings, emotions. We see all of that and we think, oh my God, this is something that's going to drown me. I cannot breathe. This is something I cannot survive. I no longer want to touch that. I no longer want to swim in that. I no longer want to approach that, because we all have that same fear that maybe one day, we'll realize that we are the problem, or maybe that one day we'll know that we are the problem. But the more that we think about these issues, the more that we kind of look into ourselves, we realize that the power lies within us. The problems that we have, they are only circumstantial because of the feelings that we have once felt. And once we can move past those issues, that's when we'll become better. That's when we'll become a true better self, just our ultimate form, if you want to say. That's when we can finally approach things in a calm, in a well-mannered position in our life and say, you know what? I am enough. And I don't think that a lot of people understand that. I don't think that a lot of people take that. And I think that we all run from this stuff. As men, we constantly think about these issues that affect us. Some of us have been molested. Some of us have had nothing but disconnect from our families. Some of us have been abused. Some of us have been tortured. And we just push ourselves away from everybody. We no longer tap into emotion. We no longer tap into deep thought. And we associate things like that with being soft or being, just overall just depressed, as if depression is such a bad thing to be. But you know what? Nobody wants to be depressed. That's about as bad as it gets. Nobody wants to feel these feelings of inadequate. Nobody wants to have to be there to ultimately just tell themselves like, you are not enough. But I tell you what, once you kind of adventure into that train of thought, and once you start to look at it from an outside perspective, things start to open up. The walls, they don't come in anymore. They don't collapse. You start to see that you are in an open territory, and that everything that you've once experienced does not make you who you are in the future. It may have some type of part of building who you are today, but the past barely has any effect on the future unless we give it that power. Emotional permanence. The idea that we are okay, we will be okay. People still love us. People still care for us. People still respect us, and they don't need to tell us that. They don't need to show us that. We don't need acts of service. We don't need sexual relations. We don't need the constant verbal communication. We are okay as we are. We are human, and we are bound to mess up. We are human. We are bound to run into people who have messed up, and we are bound to run into people who don't appreciate for who we are. But at the end of the day, all said and done, the main goal is to appreciate yourself. The main goal is to love yourself. And the more that you kind of become self-involved with the idea of being able to let go of other people's perspective, is the sooner and the quicker that you'll be able to move towards some type of self-resolve. And that's my opinion. But I also think that there's a little bit of universal truth to that. As much as I'd like to say that it's a universal truth, I realize that it's more of a personal maxim. But nonetheless, if it's something that we could apply to every single day of our life, if we could apply this to our life, we would feel a hell of a lot better with the things that we are constantly facing every single day. We would be able to walk away from abusive relationships. We would be able to move better, do better, and grow better. We would just be better. So at this point in the podcast, you may be sitting here and you may be wondering, how? Devin, you've sat here, you've talked to me for 8 solid minutes of nothing but rambling. You haven't given me any way to actually feel like I might be able to move on past this. The very first thing that you can do is start out by just realizing that loving someone that's toxic, whether it's family or not, will cause someone to literally crave that type of validation in their love, while also fighting the feeling of never wanting to feel that pain again. And you can quote me on that. This affects us through every walk of our life. And that's why we see people venting on social media and we see it as cringe. But some of the things that are weird or taboo or cringe, they're only cringy because there's a sense of truth to it. There's some part of us that may understand where this is coming from. We see people vent on social media and we think, wow, how could you do this? Nobody cares. Nobody wants to listen. But you know what? Oftentimes we find ourselves venting on social media because it's the main place that we feel heard. We have hundreds, thousands of people who don't even know us that are willing to offer us support, offer us some type of comfort or gratification or validation. And the people that we grew up with our entire life could never offer us that. The very first thing that we can do to start getting towards emotional permanence is realizing that we need those types of outlets. We need to build more people in our lives that support us and let go of those that hurt us. We need to stop looking for that validation that feels so good but is so painful. But most of all, we need to be able to find some type of network to vent to, or even if it's writing and you're venting to yourself or me and you start a podcast, to have something to go back and listen to. I have a community of people that agree, hear you, and listen to you. That's more valuable than anything that I could ever put into this little 15-minute podcast. Anything that I could ever even sit down and speak to you. That right there is more important than anything, is to have some type of support system. We build these support systems almost every single day without even noticing them. We find favorite coworkers. We find favorite people that we've met at school, at work, even if it's just your favorite cashier that you see every day, your favorite bartender. We build these people, or we build these places of support and these comfort zones without even realizing it. The more that we actually put forth the idea of changing things for the better, the more that we will live better and do better. The next thing that I could say that honestly would help us the most is just moving on from some of the things that are in our past. And by moving on, I don't mean forget. And I don't mean forgive. Some of those things are unforgivable. And some of those things are definitely unforgettable. But taking that stuff, sometimes moving on is taking that stuff, thinking about it, and applying it to your life in a way that's beneficial and not harmful. If we could take some of the abuse, the turmoil that we've been put through, and we could apply that in a way that we would no longer want to make anyone else feel that. If we just wanted to make people feel heard, or we went forth just trying to do something simple as putting a smile on somebody else's face, that right there offers us more self-validation than anything. Making people feel good makes you feel good. That is scientifical. It doesn't apply to everybody, but it is a scientific study that has been proven for years to come. Finally, the last thing that we could do is be honest with ourselves and the people around us. If we know that we struggle with emotional permanence, sometimes it's okay to ask your partner to, give us constant reminders, or the people around you to remind you, but that stuff does get tiring. Just as much as you have your own stuff, other people do feel that same turmoil, that same pain, and some are better at handling it than others, but at some point, we have to just be able to be honest with ourselves and the people around us and say, hey, this is one area of my life and my mentality that I honestly just suck at. This is something that I cannot adjust to and that I have to learn with, and I need your help. And sometimes you need to speak to yourself and let yourself know that same thing. Look, I've tried so hard to figure this out, but I just can't. For some reason that I cannot feel okay with the idea that somebody could possibly love me. That's most likely because you don't love you. You need to figure out why you don't love you. And you need to try to change those issues that face you every single day, the issues that you face every single day. You look these issues in the eyes, and what do? We smoke, we drink, we gamble, we do anything. Everybody has a vice, whether it's drugs, whether it's sex, whether it's video games or hobbies. We all have a vice. We all find somewhere to run away to. Maybe we should just stop running. maybe it's time to just take a breath and move away from that entirely. So, honestly, I'm going to end this note with, honestly, a challenge for you all. The next time that you sit there and you think, does this person love me? The next time you think or you sit there and you think, does my family care? Are my homies really there for me? Are they people that I can trust to ride with? Are we gonna be okay through thick and thin? You need to just question yourself first and say, is this something that I'm struggling with, or is this an actual issue? Is this something that, seems as if it's affecting me because it's something I can't stop thinking about? Or is it something that is a genuine issue? Because not all times is emotional permanence the issue. Sometimes there are issues with other people. But I challenge everybody that's listening to this right now to go out there and next time you find yourself just thinking, am I worthy of that trust? Am I worthy of that love? Do my people have my back the way that I have theirs? Just stop, breathe, and think. Do you have your own back right now? You have their back when they do you wrong. Why wouldn't they have yours? Thank you for listening to me this time. For real. Everybody that's out there listening, thank you. These are issues and thoughts that I have on the day-to-day. And it's nice to have other people hear this and to know that other people can benefit from this. But most of all, just thank you for surfing the void with me today. You are appreciated. You are loved. And you are going to become the best you that you can ever be.